and welcome to another episode of Frosty's Projects. Project today is I've got a bedroom in my basement that I need to do some work on. There's actually 3 different pieces that I'm going to be working on, so it's too much work to put into a single video, so I'll break this into 3 parts. This room has been vacated long enough for me to do this work, and then my 2 older girls, Annabelle and Savannah, will be moving to this as a bedroom. So the work that we have to do today is, as you can see, this room was carpeted and we had to remove all of the carpet. I'll explain more in detail when we get to that portion of the video. Also, in this corner, you can see there's a big hole in the wall down there in that corner. That's some water damage, so I need to do a drywall repair. And then last but not least, over here at this door, it's kind of hard to see from this angle. Let me see if zooming in helps at all. The strike leg of this door frame has been removed. It needs to be replaced and put back into place. I still have that strike leg. It's actually in good condition, so I'm going to be able to reuse that piece. But just the same, I need to be able to get this door closed and latchable again for the girls. So that's the project for today. Kind of threefold, and I'll give a little bit more of an intro on each one of the parts as we get to it, kind of explaining how we came to be where we're at with this room. All right, so what we got here is it was late spring, early summer. We had some pretty severe weather here in the Colorado Springs area. Lots of really heavy downpours, a lot of rain. And this room that we're in right now is actually a half basement. I don't know if you can see the window behind me, but the bottom of that window is actually ground level. The drain that goes to the back stairs from the backyard into the basement has plugged up, and it caused that stairwell to flood, and it actually came into the basement, and it flooded the entire basement. The water was deep enough to actually put the pilot light out on our hot water heater. So we had a lot of severe weather. That's why the carpet has been removed from this room, and we're doing some other work in here. But the water soaked into this corner. You can see this drywall is completely dead. You can see where it's actually blown out from where there was so much water intrusion. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut out as much of this drywall as it takes to get to good material. See, it all feels pretty solid, not until you get in here that it's such bad shape. So we'll get this all opened up, and we'll start from there. All right, so the first thing we're going to need to do, since this is all the way down at the bottom of the floor, or the wall, we need to get the base, this trim piece, out of the way around the corner. Good news is, since we're redoing the flooring, I have to remove the base anyway. It's not a big deal. Otherwise, you'd want to be careful and save it and all that kind of stuff. However, this base, as far as I know, is original. It's as original as long as we've lived here, which is almost 9 years. I have no idea how far back it goes, and because it's been so badly water soaked, it's really not worth keeping. So normally I'd be very careful about removing this because I could reuse it. In this case, between the water intrusion as well as just the age of the base, I'm going to replace it all anyway. Use a utility knife or a box cutter. If there's a line of caulk, you cut that first, nice and neat. Give yourself a little flat bar. And again, normally you'd want to be very careful not to damage the drywall, but in this case we're replacing it anyway, so you can be a little bit more aggressive. When you get this out of here, you can see this drywall just falling out where all that water got into it. And remove this piece as well as far back as you need to. In this case, I'm going to pull it all the way back to the first seam because we're replacing it all anyway. You want to be careful with this. I'm not sure you can see that in the camera, but this comes out with the nails in it, so you want to make sure that you either bend the nails over or you put this face down on the floor so you don't step on the nails until you can properly dispose of the material. Now that that's open, we'll do all kinds of stuff falling apart. Let's just peel some of this bed drywall out of here. And drywall should not fall apart like this. got a stud here. We want to peel this back at least as far as the first stud, so we've got something to screw the new drywall into. Oh, this stuff is horrible. Insulation. You can actually feel it's coming off in powdery, but you can actually feel it's kind of soft and moist. I bought a piece of drywall as a patch. I didn't feel I needed an entire sheet, and they sell like 2-foot squares at the local hardware store, home improvement store. And hopefully, between that and scraps that I've got in my garage, it should be enough to get stud to stud, stud to stud, the appropriate height so we can get rid of all this crap. This drywall, well, I don't know. We'll say this is pretty crappy. And there's a stud right there. Broke out a little long, but that's survivable. Yeah, I start getting back into here, and this is good solid drywall. This corner needs to be retaped. But I'm into good solid material up here. Alright, that's not too bad. The rest of this all feels pretty solid. So that's the size of our repair. We get out some other tools. We'll get this cleaned up a little bit. We'll take some measurements and we'll be able to start getting a patch in here. Alright, so just by hand I went ahead and I broke out everything that was clearly soft and bad back to where I have good solid drywall all the way around the perimeter. So now I need to make this and clean it up a little bit so I can put my patches in. I didn't buy a whole sheet of drywall with as many kits as I have. You'd think I'd just keep a sheet on hand just in case, but you can buy these small patch pieces, a little more economical. So I've got a piece that'll fit nicely there. I've got another piece that I use some out of that'll fit there. This one will fill that completely. And the only thing I'll have is just a little bit of a corner down here that I can use this scrap. And I don't like doing that as much, but it's a fairly small one. You've got a stud right here that we're going to be screwing into. This will tape the texture out pretty nicely when it's all said and done. So we'll get this out before I get it out of the way. We'll go ahead, I'm going to do this piece first. So with it held generally where it's going to be going, I'm going to mark my wall where I need to be cutting this out. This is cutting out a little more material than I usually would, but just because I'm not patching the hole, I'm patching the hole where there was water intrusion and damage. I want to make sure I get all the bad stuff out of there. So there's my cut here and here. So we'll get this cut out so it's a nice clean edge that'll be easy to match up to and be able to tape off so we get a nice clean seam so when all said and done you won't see any kind of repair. So this is the size I need on this side. We'll get it cut out, get it in place, and then we'll mark out the other side. Alright, so that's our cut. I don't know how many screws I'm going to happen to hit studs with this, but because of the locations, I think this and the stuff that I've already broken off should come out nice and neat, just like that. Okay. An old screw here from the stud, we'll get it out of the way. A couple over here. Of course, that one's a nail. Why wouldn't it be? That one's a nail. It's all old fasteners. When I cut this one out, that screw's going to be in the way, so let's just get it out of the way while I'm at it. There we go. And now this guy, come over here. And fit right into place like that. Debris on the floor here we can clean up. There's actually a screw on the floor there. I don't know how they got a finish nail into concrete. That's how I hold this up. Right way. Actually, the bevel on this concrete, that's actually the forming material from where they poured the concrete. Still there. Alright, got a lip on the concrete right there. It's going to hold us up a little bit. All things considered, it's going to fit in there very nicely. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get this screwed into place. So in case I haven't said it before in the video, I am not a drywaller. Never claimed to be. I see it done enough on job sites as doing commercial construction. I watch them do it. I learn things from watching them, and I've done enough household repairs. I'm fair to Midland at it. But there are guys, when you see commercial drywallers, they'll take a 4x8 sheet of plywood and they'll stick it up over a wall full of studs, and they'll pop screws down an 8-foot line where a stud is and not miss a single one. They've got a feel for it. I don't have that. So what I did is I leaned this patch back a little bit, and if you can see in the camera, right here is a stud. Okay, so I'm going to mark the center line of that stud. Take myself a straight edge, and I'm going to cheat. I'm going to draw myself a line where that stud is. So I know exactly where to put those screws, because I ain't a drywaller. Okay? So I'm more concerned with this drywall patch being flush out to where I've cut out than I am to the floor, because the floor is going to have base and some other things going on. So if it's a little bit off the surface of the floor, that doesn't bother me a whole lot, because it's going to be hidden anyway. And if you look around the rest of the perimeter of this room, once the base is off, you'll realize the drywall doesn't go all the way to the floor. That's not unusual. So I don't feel too bad about that. So we're going to get ourselves drywall screws set up and ready. We're going to get our patch put in place. To make sure it's nice and snug, we're going to use a kicker. Okay. It's back where it belongs. Get a kicker underneath it, and then when you push down on this, it's just a lever and it holds this patch right up into place. And make sure it's snug all the way around. Put ourselves a screw in. And there you go, now it's held in place. Okay, and then we can run a few screws right down that line that I drew so I know I don't miss any studs. Now, I wish this piece had been a little bit larger so we could come all the way out here to the stud. Is what it is. We'll be able to take this, for what we're doing here, that size patch should be just fine. We'll need to cut a patch in for this corner. We still have this side to do, and we'll take it from there. All right, so what I've done here, rather than try to trace out this weird conglomeration going on and try to match it again, and I'm also wanting to get rid of any potentially bad material, I've just drawn a straight line. I drew it with a pen, but it didn't come out very clear. So I went ahead and put a piece of painter's tape right along where I'm going to cut this. It's a nice straight line. It'll be easier to duplicate on the repair piece. And we'll just cut this out just like I did on the other side. Some of this bottom corner was actually a little wet as well. I'm glad I went ahead and got extra material out of there. A couple more fasteners we can get rid of. Nice. Okay. So we got that all cleaned up. Just for the record, growing up, I spent as much time not only with my dad in the garage doing things like this or working on cars, but I spent just as much time in the kitchen with my mom learning to cook and bake and do all those kinds of cool things as well. So one of the things that she taught me in the kitchen is always clean as you go. Keeps your workspace clear. You don't lose stuff. Always clean as you go. And that's just a lesson that I've carried on with me in everything I do. It just makes everything easier. If you kind of clean up your little mess as you go, you're not left with this big pile of crap at the end that you got to deal with. So I'm a firm believer in cleaning as I go. So now we're going to estimate that to be right about there. Just kind of best guessing this just because of the way that corner blew out a little bit. Take our straight edge, which isn't quite long enough. I'm just kind of best guessing this whole thing anyway. This could be an epic fail, but we'll find out, right? Okay, so I had to adjust fire a little bit on that. Connect our dots. Okay, there's our cut. We'll ignore that one. Okay, so now we can take a utility knife. This on our line. And again, I watch drywallers freehand this all the time at work, but I ain't that good, so I like using a straight edge. All I have to do is cut through the paper. Nice and neat. And then just have to cut through the paper. And you can take your drywall. Pop just like that. And you take your utility knife, carefully cut your paper on the inside. And you've got a nice clean cut. And with a little luck, this might actually fit. And look at that. Once in a while, even Frosty can do some stuff right. All right, so somewhere in here was a stud. It's right here. Okay, here. Just like that. Grab this couple of little drywall screws. And this is a short enough span, I think I can hit a stud. Voila! That's going to be behind our base. Now all you have to do is patch this corner, basically just like we did over here. We'll clean this up nice and square. Probably match the width of my strap here. Let me make sure my camera can see what I'm doing there. Okay. So we'll match the width of my scrap here. And there we go. Let's clean it up a little bit. Got a dent in the wall there. I should have known that. I would have gone a little bit taller. Oh well. That's what mud is for, right? Screw out of there. And our patch. And just like that. Once again, where'd my pen go? There she is. We've got a stud. Right here. Drywall screws ready. Close out a little bit on that side. A little bit twisted, but not bad. We can tape this and we can float it a little bit when we do the mud. And that should ought to do the trick. Alright, so the tape that I have here, I've seen a couple different types. I don't use a lot of tape. Again, I'm not a drywaller, broken record, I know. This stuff is self-adhesive. It's got a backing that you peel off. And then it sticks to the wall. Come on. So I can get it started. There we go. All right. So put this right over our seam. Any drywallers out there, put in the comments exactly what this tape is for. I have no idea. All I know is you're supposed to use it. I assume that it has to do with the way that the drywall mud is going to fill in this, and it makes it a smoother, evener, perhaps more durable seam. I don't know. So if you know what the tape is for besides, oh, you're just supposed to use it, Let me know, I'm curious. So we'll tape over seams. We're going to try to get a bead right down this corner. I'll use this scraper. I'm not going to fight this roll, so I'll tear it generally to length now. So I'm not fighting all the twists. See if that doesn't give me a leg up on this. Making this up as I go along, so. Okay, here we go. Scraper. Get that down in the corner nice and neat. Appears to work pretty well. How about that? Sometimes making it up as you go works. All right. And I would venture to say we're ready to slap some mud on this. Not too bad for an amateur. So we've got this all taped up. The mud that I've got is a pre-mix. So you can buy the powder and put water in it and stir it up yourself and make what you want, but I'm not enough of a mud guy to pretend to know what I'm doing. So I usually just buy the pre-mix. I'm just going to slather this stuff on there, especially the seams and the screws. For any debris you're picking up, loose paper, or big clumps of something that may be interfering with a nice smooth surface when you're done. Because of the irregularities in the wall, I'm going to use a fairly healthy coat to try to float out some of the inconsistencies. Best I can anyway. I've seen it done. Doesn't mean I know how to do it. Okay, and even the areas that are solid drywall, I'm going to add a thin layer of mud because I'm going to try and experiment. Because these walls are textured, and I'm making a nice smooth surface, I mean, especially once I get in here and I start sanding it, you'll have this perfectly smooth corner where everything else in the room is textured. The only time I've ever seen texturing done is on a job site, and they come in with a big sprayer and they spray entire rooms to get the texture on the walls. Well, obviously I'm not going to texture this whole room, nor am I going to try to find a sprayer to do just this one corner. I don't know if you can buy like a wallpaper that you would adhere to this that would create that texture. I don't honestly know. I suppose it's possible. But I've been putting a lot of thought into this in some other rooms where I've done some drywall repairs and they still have that smooth area where I patched it. So I'm going to try and experiment and see if it works to try to put texture into this. That's why I'm putting drywall everywhere, not just where the screw holes and the tape is. Because I'm going to try to add texture. We'll figure out together whether or not it's going to work. I suppose a slightly larger blade would have been nice, but this is what I have just in my garage from Bondo on cars and stuff. But I keep it clean so I can use it for anything whenever I need it. This is that area that's going to need a lot of fill. I really need to float it out because it stood quite a ways away from the existing wall. That patch did. It's never going to be perfect. Really trying to push the drywall mud down into this tape. In typical amateur, I'm getting this stuff everywhere. There's Billy when you need him. Billy would love this. Because I'm going to try to texture this, if it works, I don't need to make this too perfectly smooth. And if my texture idea doesn't work, then I'll have to go back and really smooth this out and worry about sanding it and doing all that good stuff. But so far, get a nice, neat layer on all this. not very smooth, but that may not be an issue. We try to take a wet sponge. This will add some texture to it. It may be a little rough, but then I can sand it when I'm all said and done. Get the top flat edges off it.
Hi there.
Okay. This appears to be working very nicely. Again, it's a little more aggressive than the texture that's existing. If I take some sandpaper and go just right over the top of it. Once it's dry, take off the sharp edges. Match the texture in the room. It'll be real close.
I brought you something.
Okay, I'm recording. What is that?
It's a
Oh, a carpenter's pencil? Oh, those are always handy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dry. Take some sandpaper to take the high edges off of that texture that I just put on there with a wet sponge. And we'll see what it looks like. Alright, so we've got our drywall repair done over here. My texture technique worked pretty well, amazingly, for something I'd never done before. This is my son, Iggy. He's going to help me. We're going to do some painting in here. It's the same color it was before, so we're not going to tape off the roof or anything. We don't have any flooring to worry about. So we're just going to be putting paint on the walls, kind of touch up paint, make everything look nice. So let's get at it. You're a dentist?
Yeah, my dentist. Wow.
Alright, so as it turns out, the paint that I had wasn't exactly the same color as what was here, so we went ahead and threw a good coat on the entire room, Iggy and I did. But the drywall patch is done. It's a little dark just because the paint's still wet, but it actually turned out pretty good. Lessons learned, certainly should have used the extra drywall and gone stud to stud for this repair, and I wouldn't have to float it quite so much. But the texture that I did, considering I dreamed it up myself and had never tried it before, I'm actually pretty pleased with the way the texture worked out. So the paint is done. We just need to wait until the paint is dry, put our outlet covers back on, and that portion of this project is done. I hope you all have learned something. I know I learned some stuff doing this, especially with the drywall repair. And I hope you all have a blessed and awesome day. See you all next time.